You're welcome back. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis show. And joining us now, Mr. Yadupoku takes leave of us, and then Kweku Bako Jr. joins us. But let's begin by listening to the Auditor General, Daniel Domelevo. We will go back to listen to the Auditor General. He was on the Super Morning Show last week speaking with Daniel Dazi about things that have gone on in his office that he has concerns about. Of course, we know that in the course of this week, he wrote a letter. That we have gotten to know was written on the 18th of November to the EOCO, telling them to their face that they do not have the statutory mandate to investigate him in the manner they have sought to do. Of course, yesterday, as we know, a load of civil society organizations issued a press statement. And if you remember, this is not the first time they are coming to the defense of the Auditor General. They issued a press statement and simply asked the EOCO to get off the back of the Auditor General. These organizations are the Legal Resources Center, the Institute of Economic Affairs, the Africa Center for International Law and Accountability, Parliamentary News Africa, Economic Governance Platform, ISODEC, CSO Oil and Gas Platform, Women in Law and Development in Africa, that's WILDA, Citizens Movement Against Corruption, CMAC, Center for Local Governance Advocacy, Commonwealth Human Rights Initiative, West Africa Civil Society Initiative, Imani Ghana, Financial Accountability and Transparency Accra, Pen Plus Bytes, Africa Center for Energy Policy, Institute for Democratic Governance, IDEG, Media Foundation for West Africa, Send Ghana, Ghana Integrity Initiative, Ghana Center for Democratic Governance, CDD Ghana, and the Ghana Anti-Corruption Coalition. And just a few lines of what they had to say to give some perspectives. They said that CSOs concerned about the handling of alleged Auditor General public procurement violations. On November 5 this year, it was reported that the Economic and Organized Crime Office had launched an investigation into alleged public procurement breaches carried out by the Auditor General and one of his deputies in the purchase of vehicles for the audit service. The investigation was triggered by a private citizen's petition. As CSOs committed to fighting corruption, promoting the rule of law and public accountability, we welcome the efforts of investigative bodies to promote horizontal checks and balances. No one is above the law and everyone should be held to the same standard of accountability. However, as keen observers of the anti-corruption space, we are very alive to the ways in which state power can be abused to harass and intimidate public officers seeking to protect the public purse and serve the public interest. The genesis and its circumstances surrounding the alleged infractions being investigated and the handling of the investigations by another law enforcement raises concern that there is an attempt to undermine the work of the Auditor General. I'll read one last paragraph. We recall that in late September 2018, two petitions to President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo leaked to the press. One was from the Auditor General accusing the Audit Service Board and particularly its chairman, Professor Dia Ajiman, of interfering with the audit Auditor General's work. The Audit Service Board also petitioned the President, stating, among other things, that the Auditor General had sidelined the board in procurement processes contrary to law and was acting on its own. A key issue of contention was the purchase of 32 vehicles the board claimed was in contravention of procurement rules. The President set up a committee to investigate the matter. Unfortunately, the outcome of the committee's work, led by the President's Executive Secretary, was not made public. I'll share some portions with you later, but Kokubako is here. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning, my brother.
Right. If the Auditor General is ready now, can we hear him and then hear our guests on this issue? All right, so let's begin by listening to Mr. AFENYO-MARKIN. What do you make of what is going on as far as handling of the Auditor General is concerned? We know, as a matter of fact, as the CSOs referred to, he had tried to do some audits, and the chairman of the board attempted to make a certain intervention because he said he had been petitioned by the NHIA that certain officers of the audit service, the manner in which they were seeking to investigate them, they were not pleased. They petitioned the chairman. They did not make any complaint to the audit service, who had written letters to them to produce documents and so on. But they chose to complain to the chairman. And the chairman sought to invite the lead person on the audit team in, auditing the NHIA, inviting them to a meeting in his office and at the Flagstaff, at the Jubilee House, the senior minister's office. The senior minister's office. These have raised issues. We know that in that process, he sought to say that some of the procurements they were seeking to do were unnecessary and a waste of public resource, because they were seeking to procure a certain audit of a certain process which had been done in 2016, and there was no evidence that they had even followed through the recommendations of that process, and yet they were throwing yet another round of millions of Ghana cedis to do these things. He said you can't do that, and in any case they had given the same contract to do the same kind of job to as many as 3 entities, including a South African entity or so. We know that this is what began the problems. And then, most recently, the Kroll and Associates assignment. The senior minister's office appears to be the one that was prosecuting this contract. Then later we find that the Ministry of Finance is involved. We find that the national security was involved. Money in excess of $1 million, was paid. And he asked the question, proof of work done. There was contract approved for them to do the work, PPA approved for them to contract for a year. They contracted for 4 years or so. He asked questions about that, and people say, this is why he's being pursued. His officers have been invited to EOCO, as many as 10 of them. None of them was cautioned and charged and bailed. He, the 11th, attended to EOCO, and he was cautioned, charged, or if you like, and bailed. Why?
Well, Samson, first of all, let me start with the EOCO. You know that in this country, no lawyer has sued EOCO more than I have done.
Yes.
I continue.
They don't like you.
Of course. I continue to fight EOCO. I still have about 5 cases, 3 at the High Court, 2 at the Court of Appeal, and 2 more, 7, 2 more at the Supreme Court for interpretation and all that. The Rambo style of arrest some years ago, I fought against it. A situation where FIC will freeze an account and refer it to its own investigative body instead of EOCO was also a matter I fought and won. So now let's come to our criminal jurisprudence. Can an investigative authority by law convict a citizen or an individual?
No.
Thank you very much. So when somebody is investigating, an institution is investigating, that body is not a court of law. You should be happy. You should be happy. Therefore, for an impression to be created that, oh, the Auditor General is being persecuted, it's a bit worrying. Let them do what they want to do. Me, if I were his lawyer, he had come to me and said, Afenyo, EOCO has called. I say, sir, please go. They've cautioned you.
Even when they are wrong?
Don't worry. Let's finish the stage one. It's not a matter of they being wrong. Because if they are wrong, they will be exposed. Samson, if EOCO, for whatever motive, they want to frustrate you, and they say, come, they caution you, you wait after a period, because they must take you to court.
What if you allow the process, and in the end, you want to check out, and you are told that you are acquiesced, so you can get out?
Oh, Samson, you are a lawyer. Don't stretch your devil's advocacy to that level. I am saying, under due process, proper due process, in this our criminal jurisprudence that we know as lawyers, if the first stage is investigation,
right?
If they're investigating you, it's not conviction. When they are done, they are supposed to prosecute. So if you know that all these stories, they are doing their own thing, allow them. You see,
he says he's not afraid of being investigated, and he's willing to be investigated.
I agree.
Except that, like some people also suggest, the systems can fail you. So if you say he should allow the process,
systems, where would it end? In court?
No, the systems can fail you, and you have those who think that the Charlotte Osei example is systems that have failed him.
You see,
there was an EOCO investigation, and then before we said Jack.
Okay, so let's talk about Charlotte Osei.
Parts of that was used to go through a process that removed her.
Samson, although I strongly disagree with you, but because you brought the Charlotte Osei matter went to the Supreme Court. The Charlotte Osei matter, we had Supreme Court judges sitting on a matter and making a recommendation. Are you saying, for the whole world to hear you this morning, that there was a system failure? Is that what you are saying? Please, I hope not. Those who are saying there was a system...
You mean it went through the president, through the Chief Justice, not the Supreme Court?
Yes, what I'm saying, no. In terms of the court action, I think Mr. Baku...
It was not determined.
No, I'm not talking about... I'm saying that he sued.
That one was not determined. Outcome, that one was not determined.
Sure, what I'm saying...
You can leave that aside. That one was not determined.
I am saying that he sued, challenging the whole process.
The process.
Now, let's come to the process. The process itself, Charlotte Osei had a lawyer who made a representation. There was a hearing, and she has not questioned the outcome of the process. She, Charlotte Osei, Mrs. Dupoku, the other deputy, FNA, deputy operations.
Okay, let's stay with Domelevo.
No, we have to exhaust that. Those three respondents in that matter, where some people find it a system failure, have not complained. They have not.
The members of the public have a right to complain, and
yes,
they complain.
What I'm saying is that you and I, as lawyers, should tell the members of the public, who are claiming so, that they are wrong. There hasn't been a system failure. So that, you see, we don't encourage that. If we do, then, Samson, there will be no institution functioning in this country.
Okay, so back to
Domelevo. Now back to EOCO.
Yeah.
I am saying that Mr. Domelevo should relax, keep his calm. If he thinks that the EOCO is after his blood, all of us are watching. Okay? You've gone there, they've cautioned you. You've given a statement. Leave, you've gone home. Let them come to the next stage. If they have some evidence that you breached the procurement law in the award of a contract and all that, let them bring it on. In fact, per our laws.
He was not personally involved in this process, so to speak. 10 of his staff were invited. All the 10, nobody was cautioned. Nobody had to suffer bail. He was.
Samson.
Do you think he may be justified in suspecting that they want to persecute him instead?
Samson, do you want us to talk law, or you want us to descend into the gallery? it's our collective duty here to encourage him on the path of law, which has certainty as an outcome. All right? On the path of law, he should have no worry. Were you not in this country when I would say some people conspired and demonized me, and to the point that we are finished with AFENYO-MARKIN, today is its end? I knew where it was coming from. I had some senior lawyers, some of them now at the bench, say, AFENYO, keep quiet, don't talk. Go through the process, let it be. If we know they are lying, it won't get to anywhere. It won't get anywhere. I am using the same yardstick to advise my senior brother. I was here on your program. Some issue came up. He called me. Some senior members of our party called me and said, this is how it is. I respect Mr. Domelevo. I beg of him. He shouldn't be emotional. He should not overly be engaging the media. He should relax. I'll take the advice of your lawyers. If you have gone to court, good. But don't be worried. But
it costs money to go to court too.
Oh, of course, because you want to protect your rights.
Yes.
Why? But he's a public officer.
So don't do the wrong to me so I go to court.
Oh, come on. You are stretching it too far. Let's come to the real issue. I'm saying that you are not obliged to say anything. If you go to EOCO, I've taken them all the way to Supreme Court. Supreme Court ruled that this issue of questioning people how they got their money and all that, there's a Supreme Court decision. EOCO, when you arrest somebody, you are investigating. That person is not obliged to tell you the source of his funding. It's a Supreme Court ruling. On all other investigations, they told them that don't say the person came and refused to give a statement, so you are doing ABC. You can't. So, boss, Auditor General, you are not obliged to say anything. When you go there, if you don't want to talk, don't talk. Let EOCO finish with its investigation.
Well, he's not going there anymore. He would rather that they dare arrest him.
You see, well, if that is the path he wants, I would encourage him to depart from that path. It's an unholy path.
Now, what do you make about how, like, these groups of civil society have come together, and is it possible to say that all of them have gotten it wrong all this while? This is not the first time they are coming, they are making the intervention. That must speak, a lot about what is going on.
Okay, so those civil society organizations, I don't think that they are really looking at it from the legal perspective.
They've done that. They have assessed all of that.
These are my views, so allow me to express my view.
Okay.
I am saying that from the statement they have issued, I don't think they are really looking at the law. I don't think so. If they were looking at the law, they wouldn't express concern. They wouldn't say that EOCO should not do its work. After all, the Auditor General also has a constitutional mandate to audit EOCO. All right? So let's allow the system to work and observe it closely. It will end up in the courts. Now, I read the Auditor General's letter where he's giving interpretation and saying that he's been advised. Well, he's not a lawyer. But I'm happy he didn't mention that a lawyer has advised him. He says he's been advised. Perhaps somebody
who is not a lawyer has advised him.
No, he never said so. I read it. He said he's been advised.
He copied his lawyers.
No, but it doesn't mean, because Mr. Tadiosori will not advise Mr. Domelevo not to go to EOCO.
You can say that.
No, he won't do that. That senior lawyer, he will not tell the Auditor General that the law has been amended and that EOCO has no mandate to investigate you, so don't go. Tadios will never say that. He's only been copied. Auditor General said he's been advised. He didn't say lawyer. And I don't think any lawyer in this country will advise him not to go to EOCO. If that person advises him not to go to EOCO, of course, it could be any citizen, not a lawyer. I don't think any trained lawyer in this country would advise him that don't go to EOCO. And I don't think Mr. Story, in whom I take a lot of inspiration, will ever advise him that way. He has only copied him of his letter. The letter was not written by a lawyer. He didn't say Tadiosori advised him not to go because Act 959, Section 80 has amended Section 74 of EOCO Act, that phrase bribery and corruption. So he shouldn't go and that EOCO has no mandate. He never said Thaddeus advised him. He only said he's been advised. I am happy he has gone to court on his rights. It's good. Let's see how the court deals with it. But let us also help our state institutions to function. Look, Mr. Domelevo is well respected by senior members of this government and is respected by the government and the president. Nobody should create that impression that the government doesn't like him or some people are after him. Even if some people don't like him, he should keep his calm. He should keep his calm. The systems that are working today, nobody can take him to court and jail him. How? If he, indeed, his office, and like you're saying, he was not there when the procurement, okay, when the whatever purchases took place, whatever that is being alleged he was involved.
No, I'm saying he was not personally involved.
Well, but he's an entity.
I didn't say he wasn't there.
Okay, now if you are talking about personally, I have the public complaint.
Okay.
He's the head of entity, is he?
He's not.
He's not the head of entity.
No.
Oh, hallelujah.
This is deputy.
Okay, so I am good. So it is good for him if you are.
So what do you think? What do you think? Just by that, you were thinking that he's the head of entity. If you find that he's not the head of entity,
if he's not the head of entity,
right? What do you make of the development then?
No. If he is not he's not the head of entity. He's not at all involved. He should be a happy man because the investigation will come to nothing.
Okay. All right. Just hold it there briefly, and let's listen to Mr. Daniel Domelevo.
I've said time and again, and I'll repeat it this morning, that once you fight corruption, corruption will fight you back. And it will fight you in any way that it can, justifiably or unjustifiably. I'm aware of this, and I think you might have heard that last year, Daily Guide was at the forefront of trying to tarnish my reputation. Even they said they were going to strip me naked. And I think I still have my clothes on. I am not yet naked. And it was all because of procurement of some vehicles for the Ghana Audit Service. What happened is that in the course of the procurement, well, under the Procurement Act, which also I have over here, you see that the person who chairs the Entity Tender Committee for constitutionally independent institutions is the head of administration, not the head of entity.
Okay.
So my deputy in charge of administration chairs that.
Okay.
So in the course of the procurement, when the vehicles had been procured, I'd wanted to find out whether everything has been done according to the books, according to the law. Then I discovered that they didn't go for concurrent approval. I said, my guys, why did you not go for concurrent approval? Because that procurement is above the threshold for our entity tender committee. So I asked them to go for the public, the concurrent approval. They wrote a letter to the Central Tender Review Committee explaining that we have skipped a process, but we want your approval. And they did give us approval. They wrote saying that after looking at what you have done, we have given you approval. But then the issue came out. I remember even my board chairman, he was at the forefront of saying that I have misprocured. And I have him on record. He was speaking to Captain Smart. Sorry, not Planet, sorry. Captain Smart. He was speaking to Captain Smart where he said that I have violated the law. So I said, no, there is no violation over here. I think that we didn't go for concurrent approval and we had gone for it. So once we have gone for it, I think the mischief has been cured. But it went until I had a discussion with the then chief executive of PPA, Mr. A.B. Ajay. And he said, from his point of view, we should have come for ratification instead of going for the concurrent approval. But I said, Section 90 of the Public Procurement Act, under which you can ratify, your right to ratification accrues only when you have done investigation. You cannot just get up and ratify because it is as a result of an investigation report. So he said, okay, then Daniel, if that is not a problem, we can come and investigate and see whether things were done right. I allowed it. So PPA came and did their investigation. When they came to do the investigation, they, at the end, wrote a report. Very interesting. Anyone who has a copy of that report, page 8 of the report, they made recommendation to Audit Service to apply for ratification. The Public Procurement Board team that came to do the audit report, the investigation, recommended that Ghana Audit Service should apply to PPA Board for ratification. Then we applied for the ratification. Say, okay, give us the ratification. Then the board writes to say, no, the right to ratify is at the discretion of the board. It's not for you to request for it. So the reason why we will not give you is because you have asked for it. In fact, if I knew this was going to come, I would have come with their letter. They gave the reason. They said the reason why we will not give it is that it is not a right that an auditee or an someone being investigated should ask for, but it is at our discretion. We have to give you that lesson. And so, what kind of logic is this? You send a team to come and do an investigation. They finish and they say, apply for ratification. I apply for the ratification. They say, because you've applied for ratification, I'm not going to give you. Even though they said they were not going to ratify, interestingly, they went ahead and said that, not just said, they directed that Audit Service should take immediate steps to pay for the cars. They directed, listen to me, I didn't say that they advise us or they urge us. They directed that we should take immediate steps to pay for the car. In financial management and in law, in substance, they have ratified from my point of view. Because under Section 90 of the Public Procurement Act, they have the right to cancel the whole procurement process. That is one. Mm-hmm. 2, they can nullify the contract. That is 2. 3, they can ratify. 4, they can give any instructions that is necessary. Mm-hmm. So if you nullify the contract, it can be paid for, isn't it?
Yes. It
if you cancel the whole process, it can be paid for. Is that not it?
No, it can't.
So if you say pay for it, it means that you have accepted it. So any infraction therein have been ratified from my point of view by PPA. So EOCO should go to PPA and find out why did they ratify it. I don't see why they are on the back of my staff. For the past 2 or 3 weeks, they've invited my deputies and several officers. I think it's one of the intimidating principles or approaches being used. But then I want to assure them that they can come and jail me. We will not stop doing what we are doing.
All right, so that is the Auditor-General Domelevo, Daniel Domelevo. So, Kweku, no, I'll come back to you later. Okay. Kweku, so what do you make of what is going on? Because people have put, 2 and 2 together and say, clearly, he's been out there, like they say, or he said, when you fight corruption, it will fight you back.
Well, you know something? This is an Auditor General that I have openly and publicly endorsed for his spirit and his activism. And even before he took office, I recall there was some public controversy about the appointment.
Timing,
late hour appointments, as it were, by President Mahama. It became a huge issue. We discussed it here. I think including the one of Shraj and all somebody's. And I was, in principle, not against the late hour appointments. I thought it was constitutional. There was absolutely nothing unconstitutional about it. We discussed it on this very show. And I was very clear in my mind that the president then had not committed an act of unconstitutionality. And I said so publicly. The gentleman came into office and began to work. Of course, a certain space had been created for him, and that's the part that I think he's doing quite well, by the Occupy Ghana's Supreme Court decision.
Disallowances and surcharges.
Not that it was the first time ever being done, but this time was backed by the law, that is by the Supreme Court's verdict. There had been an earlier 1 or 2 instances of disallowances and surcharge by a previous attorney.
But the regime was absolutely dormant.
Yes, that's exactly what I mean.
Until
the Occupy Ghana still was
resurrected it through the Supreme Court.
Critical. And now everybody became aware, and an Auditor General decided to be inspired by it and driven by it to do his work, and that was good for all of us as a nation.
Before he asked Osafo to pay back the 1 million, he had done the special audit that was giving us about 5 million or 5 billion.
Yes, even that became a
yes, so he's asking people to pay back, and government has been excited.
Yes, and it isn't as
all of these things back.
In all instances he may get it right, because I recall that Sylvester Mason and some people have gone to court
and they've been successful.
Yes, one of the things. No office is above reproach.
That's right.
In terms of quality of work, you can't get it 100% all the time. But what the point I'm making is that in principle, I like him and I admire him.
However,
but I have also made a point that if I were him, I would be very circumspect and cautious in how I deliver my messages, when and how. There are times I think he goes too far in his communication. And because I like him and I think he needs our support, I pray that he stays focused so that nobody starts thinking we have an agitator general rather than auditor general. And I say this with a lot of caution and respect to his integrity.
Would you say the same of Martin Amidu?
But I've said so here, and I made a point that the office may tame my friend Martin and let him get focused. I've said so. And last Thursday, Randy Abbey, in a very interesting way, asked me whether I see any similarities between the Auditor General and the Special Prosecutor. And I said yes. But you see, because of the context, the kind of environment in which we live, you need people like this to get into those positions and fight it.
The two of them are supposed to be fighting corruption,
so
really?
I'm absolutely for the two of them. Everybody knows
so
that.
Proceed. You are going to documents you have already...
Yes, a quick one. You see, the point about advice and not advice. If I read the case in court, the writ they have filed in court, which is sorry who is leading. You are the lawyers, I'm not. But it is obvious that he's been advised by his lawyers.
Of course.
Because if you look at chapter 14, and I read that I have been advised by my lawyers, and paragraph 14, thank you, and very believe same to be true, that respondent has no statutory mandate to investigate the service and myself, either jointly or individually, for any offences relating to breaches of the procurement laws of the Republic of Ghana, such as falling within the statutory province of the Office of the Special Prosecutor. 15, that accordingly, I've been advised by my lawyers and very...
You can proceed. He said that so many times.
So, but that's the one in court. I was talking about the letter.
He says he's been advised. In the letter to EOCO, he said he's been advised. Who else do you think would have advised him on a legal matter? Who else would have advised him on a legal matter? Koku, go on. Sorry, let Koku go on.
Uncle, just a second. You see, my point was, and I still maintain that a lawyer advising you on a law would rather seek an audience with the court. But writing to EOCO that you've been advised that don't come, no lawyer will say that, do so, don't go.
I disagree.
But rather take you to court.
I disagree with you that no lawyer will say don't do that. Because there are circumstances where you tell your client don't go there, let them come arrest you instead. Right? Because we know. We know. And we advise, even by judges.
And this is the best way to do it.
Even by judges. We advise even by judges that sometimes you are better off advising your client not to go and allow them to come and arrest them. So you
context?
So that they can assert their rights.
In what context?
Let's go on. Let's go on.
All I was seeking to do was not to tackle what had been said in the press statement out there. I was looking at the substantive issue.
Right.
The substantive issue being that what is in court for me is what is on the front burner. This has more weight.
Right.
Yes, so I was not contesting what AFENYO said relative to a press release. The contents may be what he was saying.
It's a letter, really, not a press release.
Okay, it's
a letter that's been leaked.
Maybe in the, I haven't seen that letter, but it may be so in the letter. But this takes precedence, as far as I'm concerned, based on the fact that whatever he's saying and doing, he's been advised.
And AFENYO knows that most of the times, before we take you to court, we will advise our clients to write to you, or we may write to you.
It's not the lawyer who wrote.
Okay, I don't think we have to debate
but
that.
But that's I say now.
No, but it's an important matter. Something we can't just gloss over.
I think we should get on.
It's an important matter.
Let's go on, Kuku.
Let's go on the substantive.
Let's go on.
Yeah, and now another argument that came up, and it's unfortunate, I didn't bring my public procurement law here, but I'm sure you may have it on.
Yeah, we do.
When the Public Procurement Authority finished with the investigations, they issued a report.
Right.
A copy of which I have here. The covering letter is dated 3rd January 2019. And I would want to read some 2-3 paragraphs. That is general observations and findings on page 6. It says the Ghana Audit Service failed to establish entity tender committee in the manner set out in the fare schedule and in accordance with the categories set out in Schedule 1B of Act 663 as amended. All procurements approved by the current composition of the ETC, that is the Entity Tender Committee, are declared null and void, as the composition does not represent the requirement for the establishment of an ETC under Schedule 1B2 of Act 663 as amended. The use of the current composition of the Entity Tender Committee by the Audit Service to carry out procurement is a major contravention to Schedule 1B of Act 663 as amended, and therefore constitute a sanctionable offense under Section 92(1) of Act 663 as amended. Now this is where the point comes. It says the interpretation given by the Ghana Audit Service for the head of administration as per Category B, Schedule 1B2 of Act 663 as amended to mean the Deputy Auditor General in charge of finance and administration as the chairperson of the Entity Tender Committee, but not the head of entity, is contrary to the meaning and the spirit of the law. They are raising a legal argument, counter-argument to what I just heard he did. Yes, what he did and what was happening here. Section 18(1) is clear on the responsibility placed on head of entity in the implementation of Act 663 as amended, and Section 17(1) and 18(2) goes to state that concurrent approval and delegation of authority does not absolve the head of entity from accountability of any procurement carried out that is inconsistent with the Public Procurement Act 2003 at 663 as amended. Failure to, I think this is not relevant. You see, so there's a debate, there's a dispute as to whether indeed the head of entity ought to have been the Auditor General himself or his deputy. There's a dispute.
His view is that he's not the one who's
That's why I said
there's
a dispute. There's a dispute, meaning there's a conflict of interpretation relative to the provisions that is there. I don't have my act here, but I'm sure you would have it. So if you could help. But there is this dispute already. And on basis of this report, some adverse findings were made against the audit service. Now the Public Procurement Authority in this case are pointing directly to the head of entity, in their opinion, being the Auditor General. That's what they are saying. And they recommended to the Attorney General's office to initiate investigations. From what I've heard, the Attorney General's office did not, because what is before EOCO is driven by a citizen petition. That's what I've been told. I don't know if you checked that. That is a citizen who has petitioned EOCO. See, and the civil society groups, the statement they issued, there was a certain very salient point they made, that no institution or personality is above the law, and that they, in principle, are not opposed to any state institution undertaking such investigations. I'm minded by the fact that, and I think I'm inclined to believe that one, that those powers that EOCO had relative to procurement, I think were ceded to the
special prosecutor.
Yes, I mean, are you sure?
No. It's only...
No, wait.
80.
No, I'm inclined to believe
It's an interpretation of the 80 where bribery and corruption.
No, you may want to take your time and look at it. Yeah, you may want to take your time.
No, that was the specific thing.
And again, we may have to be a little careful because that has now become the issue in the courtroom.
but there are many cases.
But this is what they said. This is what they said.
Yeah.
This is what the group of about over 24 civil society groups. This is what they said. They said, in our considered view, it is our considered view that at every turn of the matter, the purported procurement procedural challenge could have been cured, but various state agencies decided to teach the Auditor General a lesson. The board, led by its chair, could have respected the clear corporate governance traditions and rules in allowing the Auditor General to carry out his chief executive role, particularly when the procurement was made transparent and for value. The ongoing feud with the Auditor General prevented it. At the PPA, the board could have approved the concurrent application for ratification after establishing that there was value. But again, this option was rejected. In relation to the current investigation by EOCO, it is abundantly clear that jurisdiction over the investigation and prosecution of, quote, corruption and corruption-related offences has been entrusted to the Office of Special Prosecutor under Section 79 of the OSP Act 2017. Parliament even went further to delete the words, quote, corruption and bribery, unquote, from the definition of serious crimes, definition of, quote, serious crimes, unquote, under the EOCO Act, as part of the consequential amendment to make this clear. Indeed, in a recent High Court decision in a case brought by the Special Prosecutor Martin Amidu, Justice Efia Sewa-Botwe affirmed the OSP's jurisdiction over investigations and violations of the public procurement under the Act. So it is unclear why EOCO would be investigating this matter and not the Special Prosecutor. Following the outcome of the OSP versus Honorable Mahama Yarga case, it is likely that any charge brought by EOCO relating to public procurement violations will be thrown out for lack of jurisdiction. Moreover, it is strange that EOCO is investigating this matter in the first place after the PPA has established value for money and had not found any malfeasance or dissipation of public funds.
Well, a bit convoluted. It mixes up too many things. See, the same PPA, first of all, in terms of their findings, said the board the board deployed the conduct of the Ghana Audit Service. Deployed in breach of public procurement law and recommended referral of the report to the Attorney General's Department for appropriate action. So it means, bottom line, even the PPA did not think that what had been done was satisfactory in accordance with law. Now, when it comes to the second one, the one about ratification, this is what the PPA itself said. And this letter was to the Auditor General. It says, the board's attention was drawn that the Ghana Audit Service had written to request for ratification in accordance with Section 93C of the Public Procurement Act 2003 at 663 as amended, Clause 50 of the Public Procurement Amendment Act 2016 at 914. The request was duly discussed and rejected by the board.
But the board went ahead and said, take immediate steps and pay to Toyota Ghana.
Yes, so we should outline all the details.
Yes.
That's the paragraph.
He says that direction to pay for him is ratification.
Yeah. See, the court will determine that. That's my opinion.
Are you saying that by your understanding, they meant that the audit service should pay from their own pockets?
Listen to what they said. But paragraph 3 of the covering letter. The board further directed that because the state had obtained services and in order to avert financial loss to the state through judgment debts, instant steps should be taken by the Ghana Audit Service to pay the supplier after verifying the outstanding debt. You may say contradictory, but that's what is on board now. And that is why I am saying that this matter is subject to litigation in the appropriate forum.
So if they say that there's something was void, like you suggested earlier, why are they afraid of judgment debt? To be afraid of judgment debt will mean that you appreciate that there is a contract and it's valid.
Something. You see, I think that I'm not too sure.
Oh, no, I asked the question to Koko,
I'm
please.
not too sure what.
But this one,
No, hold on.
I'm not too sure where the focus is here. Right now, this report by PPA contains adverse findings against the audit service. They recommended that the Attorney General should initiate investigations. The Attorney General obviously didn't do or hasn't done. And some citizen petitions the EOCO. I am convinced that when it comes to the jurisdictional issue, I think the EOCO has fallen short of its mandate. That's my view.
And again, a citizen petitions EOCO after a pro-government Alliance for Accountable Governance AFAG.
You know something?
Pressure group.
I'm not interested.
Calls for action.
I'm not interested
against the process.
It can never be part of a substantive case in litigation in court. You know that. You know that.
No, we are not in court here.
No, yeah, but I'm saying that I'm focused. And that's why I'm happy that Auditor-General went to court.
Okay.
Okay? That's when it comes to such things. You have a situation where institutions of state at loggerheads, issues are coming up. You have a political civil society group also intruding all that. The forum, when it gets to court, what AFAG has said in their press statement means nothing. It's of no moment, and you know that.
Okay.
It will not be considered in court. Indeed, I don't see the Auditor General even mounting a case in court on basis of that.
Okay.
Yes, in the realm of public discussions, those things come up, and sometimes it turns propagandist. Look, this Auditor General, who I say must be protected and supported by all good Ghanaians, can do without propaganda.
Okay. It appears that the Auditor General clearly seems to want to say he knows his law and he will not be bullied by anybody. Koko mentions the PPA finding that even the committee itself, the way it was constituted, they had a problem with it. And on the basis of that, everything they have done should be
and they are quoting the law.
Exactly.
That's why I wish you had.
He too quotes the law back to them and says that you say this is wrong.
Yeah, but
I say it is not wrong because we have a quorum. The law's requirement is that the chairman and 3 others, and that is there. The people that were not there, for which you say what we have done is wrong, is that the Attorney General's representative was not attending the board's meeting. The Parliament's representative.
That's not part of the
That's what led to this ruling.
Wait.
Let me just finish that point. That's what led to this ruling. That Parliament's representative on the board was also not attending. And they showed to the PPA that as far back as 15th of March, they had written to Attorney General and these people and say, your people are not coming. Can you bring people to the board?
And they brought them.
Can you bring them? Okay.
Yes, they brought them. So that's why I said that's not a problem.
They actually send reminders again in April asking for these people to be brought.
Because they actually, the audit service did the right thing. They got these institutions to bring their people and they brought them. So that's not the issue.
And this structure predates this Auditor General.
Yes, that structure.
So why do they have a problem with it now?
No, but I don't see, it's not a problem in this report.
Right.
Because it was cured by the investigation itself.
Okay.
The audit service produced evidence of correspondence, communications to Parliament, Attorney General, and they showed the people they brought.
Right.
So it's not an adverse finding here. No.
Okay. Whilst you say it's not an adverse finding,
I can read it out.
It is one of the charges that EOCO puts against the Auditor General.
So if EOCO is doing its investigations and these are the paths they are following, you can see what will happen eventually.
Okay. Yes.
That's why
yes, Felix.
See, I am extremely surprised that Mr. Bako seeks to dismiss the involvement of AFAG. You see,
he says relative.
No. I'm making something. The people involved in the process are as important as the forum at which the matter is adjudicated, because after all, it is the people involved who kick-started the whole fuss, leading to a situation where a state entity intervenes and then it ends up in court. So we cannot dismiss it. So in this matter, timing, the people involved, the power they wield, the organizations used, and where the matter is determined finally are all important. And in considering it, you cannot dismiss it. Look, Samson, I am convinced beyond reasonable doubt that the Auditor-General is the latest victim of a campaign of retribution and vendetta against persons deemed critical to this government. And it is not just him. You see, if it were just an isolated case of Mr. Domelevo, we could make an exception and say that it is only due process that is being followed. Look, we know that this government has moved against people who criticize them. They have removed an EC chairperson who they gave notice they would be removing when they were in opposition. Senior security officials make pronouncements that are deemed critical of the way government behaves. Suddenly, they find themselves in trouble.
The facts they took
for
the petition to the president, which led to the removal of
just a minute. You see, just a minute.
Were not manufactured by them.
Well, it's the same procurement breach, and I'll come to the reason why I'm saying so, because it is not only these individuals against whom there are allegations of procurement breaches. So government must show consistency to the extent that they are turning a blind eye to procurement breaches by senior government officials. It cannot be reasonably inferred that they are acting in good faith in the matters that they pursue. Something even
this may be a very critical
I'll come to that. I'll come to that.
This may be a very critical point because if you look at the Kroll and Associates,
I'll come to that.
They went back.
Something, if you allow me, I'll come to that.
To ask for things long after they had even started. They started the contract even before they gave them the contract.
Something, I'll come to that. If you allow me to flow.
Is the Kroll
Mr. Baku, if you allow me to flow.
No, I'm just,
if you allow me
just
to
giving an example.
If you allow me to flow, I'll come to that.
So if in the Kroll matter, they were able to go back and do the cure the processes for them, why couldn't they do for this one?
If you allow me, I'll make
If we do
just
this,
a second, I'll come back to you.
This is like unleashing an octopus.
No.
To go on rampage, bringing all sorts of issues on board. Why? We are not doing justice to the issue. Okay? It's now becoming speculative, conjectures and things. There's a focus here. The focus is that EOCO is attempting or has attempted to probe the AG. That is the Auditor-General.
The AG says he's being intimidated for some things he's doing.
Yes.
And we know the things he has done. When the government is not pleased with.
The case he sent to court, the rate. I don't see Kroll here.
No, it's just
of course, he cannot possibly.
So what are we
discussing?
So that's why I say you've unleashed an octopus.
Yes, go on, Felix, go on.
That's what you've done.
Those facts and instances are material.
You go on, yes.
He will say that in court.
No, just a minute.
You go on.
It is not everything that will be said in court. It does not mean that those of us observing the process are precluded from analyzing what we believe
the court
to be informing the process.
Okay, fine. Court of public opinion. You can judge.
Even headmasters who have dared challenge aspects of free SHS have been fought against by this government. Journalists who have done work critical of this government have found themselves in trouble. Suddenly. Why? Was it not your own Manasseh, who we are told by the Media Foundation for West Africa was chased out of this country? He had to seek refuge in another country because of work he did.
Did he say government people were chasing him?
But why? Why? So who was chasing him? Samson, who was chasing him?
It could be anybody.
Let's
talk about
so this
Domelevo, please.
I'll come. This government seeks to create a climate of fear and intimidation. All these pieces that I have put on the table here cannot be coincidence. It cannot be coincidental. That the moment you begin to voice concern about the way this government is handling affairs, or if you're a public servant and you take steps to take on influential or powerful members of government, you suddenly find yourself in trouble. We cannot overlook that in analyzing matters. That is why I am gratified that the civil society organizations have come together to lend support to Mr. Domelevo. Because at the very least, this marauding government that is engaged in impunity must be brought to a screeching halt. Now, what are the issues? I spoke to you earlier about timing. Mr. Domelevo gets invited to EOCO around the same time that he surcharges the senior minister over the Kroll matter. And something, if you have your ears to the ground, as I do, you would know who rules the roost at EOCO, who is in charge of audits, investigations that end up at EOCO.
What do you mean by that?
What I mean is that there is a committee whose membership includes the senior minister and Professor Diajman, who we know is engaged in a
committee
spat.
allowed by law?
Oh, of course, set up by the government. They are, look, why? I know of NDC.
But EOCO is run by competent professionals.
No problem. But something.
Okay.
Check how EOCO begins its investigations into all the people that it has investigated. At least those on the side of the NDC who find themselves involved in one investigation or the other. The people in charge are the senior minister and Professor Diajimai. The senior minister is the subject of
which committee are you referring to?
Oh, the committee on audits.
At EOCO.
You recall that when the NDC held a press conference.
You said this committee is at EOCO.
They are not at EOCO. It is a government committee. They are the ones who commission forensic audits, which eventually end up at EOCO.
So that's what you mean?
Yes.
So you can't say that.
I'm not saying that
they will be calling the shots at EOCO.
Why? Something. I am telling you. I know that because I have friends and colleagues who have gone to EOCO and have been told how the investigations came about. Both gentlemen have an axe to grind with Mr. Domelevo. The senior minister, because of the Kroll matter, Professor Diajimai, is engaged in a very public spat with the Auditor-General over some audits that the Auditor-General refused to carry out, or some audits that he did that government found distasteful. So in analyzing the issues, we cannot divorce these entities. Again, AFAG is the one that began this whole brouhaha about the Auditor-General. And who is AFAG? An MPP grouping. Why should we discount that in the analysis? Mr. Domelevo himself speaks about the Daily Guide as the one newspaper that has waged a consistent campaign against him. Who owns the Daily Guide? The MPP chairman. So Mr. Bako's attempt to dismiss the involvement of these entities cannot stand scrutiny. Again, let us not create the impression that we are all dullards in this country and that we think that the be-all and end-all of criminal processes is at the courts. It may well be true, but things don't just get to the courts. Why? At the very least, don't we know that judges have been influenced before? And that's showed it. And if ordinary people carrying goods and yams and 1,000 cities can influence judges, are you going to underestimate the influence that public officials, powerful ones, can have on the court? I'm not saying anything.
Felix.
I'm not saying anything.
Felix, let's be fair to the facts.
Yes.
And to proceed on the basis
so
of
I'm proceeding.
analysis work to suggest that, the judges...
It establishes beyond the doubt.
Susceptible to being compromised.
It establishes beyond doubt that they are susceptible to being compromised. Judges have been removed because of that. So I don't know why you are challenging.
That's just a few judges, some.
Good. So who is to say that some too cannot be influenced by powerful government officials, if the argument were to be stretched? The point I'm making is that in this matter, whichever way you look at it, if you look at the facts available, you look at the gravity of the offense and what the Auditor-General is going through, it can only be the result of an attempt to silence him because his conduct is proving uncomfortable for government. In their view, he is touching fishes who they deem are too big to fall. That is what is happening.
He's saying he should rather be interested, like Oku said, focusing in the court. And we know that the courts have given judgments against government all the time.
That is fine. That is fine. It is not just that.
Evidence is there.
It is not just that. Because of his involvement in this matter, I suspect that what happened to others may happen to him too. He eventually may be asked to step aside.
They're saying what happened to others was unfair.
It is unfair. Look. Let us not. You see something. When courts make pronouncements, when judicial bodies rule, you have no option than to be bound by their ruling. But let nobody suggest that that in itself represents finality when it comes to justice and fairness. There are many people by whom wrong has been done by courts and judicial bodies. Sometimes you see that the process is unfair, it is deeply flawed and slanted. That is something that has happened in our history as a country. So let us not dismiss those things. So when things begin to happen and you see clear pieces in place that suggest a witch hunt, we must be bold to speak to it. That is why I commend the civil society organizations. That is why Mr. Domelevo's challenge to EOCO's jurisdiction is an important step. At the very least, it shows that there are people who are still interested in ensuring that the public purse is protected and are interested in taking on the powerful forces that want to undermine them. The point I made about government's own consistency in terms of the use of procurement breaches. Charlotte Osei was removed on the basis of procurement breaches. There are former officials in the NDC government standing trial on the basis of procurement breaches. At least in the Kroll matter, there is evidence to show that the senior minister has been involved in procurement breaches. What process has been initiated to hold the senior minister accountable apart from Mr. Domelevo's actions? Why? And what is the Kroll matter? the senior minister signed a contract with Kroll on behalf of the government of Ghana. The contract was dated 26 September 2018. And it took retroactive effect 13 February 2017. Yet approval was given to it on 14 November 2017. And even that approval was given to the National Security Council when it was Mr. Osafo Mafo, who is the signatory, and was doing so on behalf of the government of Ghana. The National Security Council has a Minister of National Security. There's a Minister of State in charge of National Security. There's a National Security Advisor. There's a National Security Coordinator, who I believe are all clothed with the power to the extent that they are mandated to do so, to represent government in this transaction. To make matters worse, when the Auditor General looked into this matter and wrote management letters to the Ministry of Finance that did the payment to ask for evidence of work done, that is, and indeed, Kroll was engaged to help with investigations into the electronic gadgets of government officials who they suspected may have committed some crimes. They were also supposed to help with the recovery of assets for the state in terms of allegedly stolen monies and other assets belonging to the state. So the Auditor General requested that show us proof of this work. Show us how much was recovered in terms of funds and assets or any other work that may have been conducted. That information has not been forthcoming. Yet payment has been made. Again, this is clearly an international financial transaction because Kroll is a UK-based entity. And we have a history where our Supreme Court has ordered the refund of monies paid to entities who even executed work because of the lack of parliamentary approval. So that too is a breach. And yet the senior minister is not being held to account. The very man who takes the step to surcharge him so that we can recover that $1 million paid to him suddenly becomes the subject of EOCO investigation, an entity that the senior minister has significant influence over because of evidence available. And Mr. Bako tells us that we are delving into the realm of absurdity and that we are introducing an octopus into the debate. Well, this is a very material octopus whose tentacles we can see visibly taking steps to hound an Auditor General whose work has become problematic for government. Right, Samson, I suspect that what may happen eventually is that a group will petition the president and ask for Mr. Domelevo to be asked to step aside, as was done to Mrs. Charlotte Osei.
Well, if something had gone on wrong,
but what has gone on wrong?
And it's susceptible to this process. We have heard, for example, senior lecturer lawyer Maxwell Opoku-Agyemang say that, well, the things they are talking about, it should not even be going to EOCO. They should take a petition, and if they took a petition, the president may consider it. So what's wrong about that?
Lawyer Opoku-Agyemang would know, wouldn't he? He's the one who was behind Charlotte's woes, wasn't he?
He was lawyer, please.
Absolutely. But when I say he was, I
don't mean it personally.
What I mean is that he did work that ensured Charlotte Osei's removal.
So what's the point? What's the point?
Again, consistency. Consistency. There's evidence that as for some category of people, when petitions are presented against them, the president does not become a conveyor belt. The conveyor belt gets stuck. It is only in the cases of people deemed problematic for government that the conveyor belt works. And I don't have any personal difficulty with anybody. Why? I don't know that the Chief Justice, the current Chief Justice, outgoing Chief Justice, was a subject of a petition to the president.
Is it outgoing or
well,
today is actually the day he's supposed to finish.
Fine.
I don't know.
But I'm sure you are aware that there's a petition against it sent to the president about 2 years ago, which has not been conveyed in spite of the fact that the president says he's a conveyor belt.
Too late.
Let me round up.
Thank you.
So I am making the point that Mr. Bako's effort to dismiss the entities involved in this governmental conspiracy to get rid of Mr. Domelevo cannot stand scrutiny. The people, the process, and what is done are as important as the forum at which it is adjudicated. And I commend the civil society organizations for rising to the occasion. Indeed, I ask all Ghanaians to rise up to the occasion, because what is happening now is that a climate of fear and intimidation is being established. You cannot criticize government and get away with it anymore. That is at the heart of this particular matter. It is not because government has an abiding belief in taking steps against persons who breach procurement laws, because the evidence shows that they are, why? The NYA matter involving Asigri and his two deputies. What has happened? Was it not a clear procurement violation where they awarded a 4.5 million Ghana cedi contract without any procurement process?
Okay.
Has EOCO invited them?
Thank you.
Or which entity is looking into it?
So, AFENYO, are you saying, and we have just a couple of minutes to go for you, are you saying that there is no correlation whatsoever, connection whatsoever about the disallowance the Auditor General has issued for the $1 million for the Kroll and Associates thing, because he has asked legitimate questions, that you have an approval for a 1-year contract, but you have made payment for 4 years or whatever it is, and then when you go back to the NHIA matter, which the chairman of the board was not happy about, actually complained that not he alone was not happy about, or the people were not happy about, but government was not happy about, in his letter, in his interaction with the Auditor General. When the Auditor General says these contracts, there is one forensic audit by MS Alberto Canse, claims and clinical audit, MS AKK Management Consulting Limited, review of NHIS operating model and overhaul of the claims payment system to stop financial losses by Taraji Health Consortium. So you are talking about 9 million, a total of 11,260,000 involved. That more than that, plus $3 million US, plus another $3 million US, and so on. That these things that he said they should stop because they were sheer waste, and that just in 2016 similar things were done, and therefore there's no need to do it. There probably may not be a need to do it again. And if NHIA wanted to do this, they should have gone through the health service or through the Ministry of Health. They didn't do all of these things, and he has issues with you. You say all of this is unconnected with what is going on with him?
Something, before I respond to this, permit me, in my earlier submission, I was referring to Abdulmalik Kwekubaku Jr.'s writ at the Supreme Court, and he said it had not been determined. Did you say that? Maybe I didn't get you right.
The substance of what you said,
right,
and what was determined in the court. Okay. The court was to determine the procedures that had been used in the process.
Very well.
And the court said a case had not matured for its attention. So it was not determined, if you like.
Oh, okay. Because I was just reading the ruling, and it didn't appear so. That's why I wanted.
You won't find a ruling, because there was not.
Is it different from the J1?
There was not a reason ruling gave.
Okay, but I'm reading it after listening to counsel in the matter on the question whether the instant action is proper invocation of original jurisdiction, and also having regard to the processes filed in the matter. We are of the view that the action does not raise any issue of interpretation or enforcement. Accordingly, we strike out the action herein, which in our view is unmeritorious.
Yes, so what's the substance then?
Yes, what I'm saying is that, I mean...
Invocation of jurisdiction. The matter substantively is not determined.
Oh. Yes, but if
you have some 2 minutes.
Very well, but I think let's do it.
Substantively, it's not determined.
Oh, really? You think so? But it says that it's unmeritorious. The issue of law has not arisen. That is it. So it's embedded.
You proceed.
Yes, it's interlocked. All right. Now, you see something. If I choose a path, that only path of Felix, this program will turn into something else. Because I wanted us to look at the law, encourage each other.
Well, look at the law.
Please, yeah, just 2 minutes. 2 minutes.
I was
2 minutes.
And encourage the Auditor General to do what is right. Encourage EOCO to do what is right. But you see, if we want to go the path of partisan politics, then we are also going to ask, from the MPP perspective, that did you plant the Auditor General? Is he your party member? As some people are speculating, would he have conducted himself the way he is always in the media if you were in power? Let's be careful. We are talking about institutions of state. We want to allow them to work. Something.
I repeat.
Sorry.
Who was an NDC
sorry, like a minute more to go.
Sorry.
And we are ending this here. We have to go to the next issue.
Don't worry.
No, Felix, stop.
It's just a small point that I made. Yeah. That's all. It's okay.
And Sly went to court.
Yeah, Sly prevailed.
And the court set it aside.
Yes, but,
so why don't
at least he charged Sly.
If you ask him, you respond. If you ask him, you respond.
No, he should respond if you encourage him to.
No, but don't be asking him.
It may be rhetorical.
Finish up.
He doesn't need to.
Okay.
I kept quiet for him.
Okay, but it's a fact.
Please.
It's a fact that he said charged
Felix,
Sly.
stop. Felix, it's okay, stop.
At least you give me the chance to make my point.
Your time is
my
up.
My point is that, well, if I shouldn't talk, I won't talk.
Go ahead.
The point is, Sly went to court to get the findings set aside. Why don't you encourage Mr. Domelevo, right?
Yeah.
To submit himself to the EOCO investigation.
But he's in court.
And that, no, doesn't mean that he shouldn't go.
But he's in court.
It doesn't operate as a stay on EOCO's investigation.
Right.
Please, don't confuse the public. I am saying that, why don't you encourage him? That, look, sir, please cooperate.
Okay.
You do so and expose them. Like you were saying that maybe something happening here, something happening here. So you think there's a possibility. You are not.
He says he's being intimidated.
You see,
his own words.
Kweku Bakun has made a point on that. I respect the Auditor General. He's doing a good work. But you should equally respect other institutions of state. Okay. Because the findings of PPA, the findings of the PPA were that there were procurement irregularities, there were breaches. However, they should proceed and make the payment because the supply has already been made. There's an argument here that, oh, he is not the head of entity. Well, I read it. I think I disagree. He is still the head of entity, except that he is not the one who presided over that entity tender committee that took the decision. These are matters he can raise in court.
Okay.
But I'm saying that for us to say, because EOCO is because he has raised issues against Osafo Mafo, EOCO is in there to persecute him. EOCO cannot jail him.
All right.
He shouldn't feel intimidated.
All right.
He should allow the system to work.
Okay.
Now again, Samson.
Sorry, I'm sorry, but we are running
no
out of
problem.
time.
No problem.
Thank you very much. And I'm sorry, but I've been asked to stop this long ago.
No, but it's unfair.
There are so many
a minute.
Oh,
yeah.
I hope you give me a minute.
No.
Oh, but I've had the least time.
Sorry.
On the matter. I've had the least time on the matter.
See, AFAG, their agitation, their advocacy that this matter should be investigated by the Attorney General came up somewhere September 2019. Apparently, I'm sure they assessed the covering letter, the recommendation.
Of the PPA?
Yes. The investigation itself by PPA ended January 2019. This matter was already in the pipeline long before AFAG came in. So I'm unable to accept that the EOCO investigation was triggered by AFAG advocacy.
Okay.
It doesn't really.
So you disagree with the civil society
what
group?
Felix did was to invite us into the realm of speculation.
No, civil society, the civil society group, that's what they're saying.
All of them.
That we should not ignore that.
No, but it's all of them.
All right.
Conspiracy theories.
Which part of it?
I'm sorry.
You are not encouraging. You are not encouraging.
Okay,
us
sorry.
to
So
argue.
this is where we. This is where we end this
This is all
session.
like you.
When we come back, we'll ask whether the referendum will happen.